Today is episode 67 with Dr. B.
Welcome to the Living Beyond ADHD podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow-through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
Hey, DDers. I'm so glad that you could join me for today's episode about executive function basics, planning, scheduling, and following through. I decided to change up the format for a couple of weeks and provide you with some important tools that I've taught students before. Without the skills to plan, schedule, and follow through, there's a lot in your life that you're not going to be able to do effectively. I trust the information in this episode will give you a start at developing these critically important skills and lessen your stressors, especially during this holiday season. One of my goals for this episode is for you to realize that you didn't have this level of skills years ago. And if you did, you'd have had more options. And since that's the truth, let's set blame aside here and focus on getting you the skills that you can start developing today that are going to make a significant difference in the quality of your life. When I welcome new students into my program, I am acutely aware of how much relief they feel by finally being aware of the underlying cause of many of the challenges that they've been experiencing. What often follows is that emotional wave of overwhelm. Everything that lies ahead in terms of skill development. Stop. I encourage you to pause, take a step back, and get some perspective. All that needs developing is the same before and after your executive function awarenesses. So what's causing the overwhelm? Meanings that you give to things causes overwhelm. You know, the years behind us are gone. The years ahead are hopefully many. And time is going to pass whether we learn these skills or not. It's a matter of priorities and deciding how ready we are to move beyond our current limitations and help ourselves to become better equipped to live more fully and with less stress. So remember that you are not what you do or don't do. That you are more than that, whether it's your time to develop these skills or not. You are not the story you make up about yourself. You are not defective or less than as a person, as a human being because of being disorganized or socially awkward or immature. Remind yourself that your mind just works differently, not better or worse, and that the difference is actually pretty cool once you have a different perspective and the tools that you need for your own success. After awareness comes taking action on what you know to get started, getting new results, better results, and fine-tune your process as you go along. It is a process, so please don't let yourself off the hook here with taking action once, not getting the results you hope for, and stopping there. Seriously? You're learning to do things. That takes practice. Not just doing them like you've known how to do them your whole life. It's almost time for some new content. But first, let's celebrate a few wins together. Perhaps you've committed to practice your skill acquisition for 30 minutes a day. Awesome. Or maybe you decided to accept yourself just as you are and not do anything to add to your plate or to improve on anything at all. Fantastic. Or maybe you made a decision to spend more time with yourself. Awesome. Celebrating a win today, even if it's been a really, really tough day, lets you acknowledge that at least something good about today has happened, and that's important even in the worst of times. You are a precious child of the universe and are called a human being, not a human doing, for good reason. You don't have to earn your value by what you do. You were born with it. Your value comes from who you are, not what you do. Got it? I hope so, because you're going to continue to hear me say it, because it's so important to your self-esteem and your quality of life. So let's transition to the content for today's episode on executive function basics, planning, scheduling, and following through, and what you can start doing today to turn your life around. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it. Today's 3 great topics are planning, scheduling, and following through.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast transcript. Great free content, plus information on programs and services, including the groundbreaking Adventures in Achievement online coaching program and one-to-one services with Dr. B. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world and learning the executive function basics.
I made some notes with regard to whole idea of your needs, which you might not even have considered your needs in this topic of planning, scheduling, and following through. But your needs, which I want to spend just a few minutes talking about, are really important. Things that I put down is if you have the need to take things slowly and not get overwhelmed, then that's a need. And you need to respect that need so you go more slowly in what you do. But you're consistent and you follow through and you plan, but it's a slower pace. Instead of getting all pissy at yourself that you're not going faster and getting more done and then get nothing done. Because that doesn't work, and that's what a lot of people do. The other that I put is some people just want to get through quickly. It's like they just want to make a plan, make a schedule, and just get it done. Get that over with, get that over with, get that over with. And again, to what end? How is that serving your need to what? Get it quickly off your plate? But then you're going to have to recycle and recircle around because you weren't thorough and you didn't really plan it and you didn't really schedule it and you didn't really get it done. It just looked like it was done because you put a check mark and you checked it off the list, but it isn't really done. So you have to visit it again. So I'm not finding that to be a real effective way either. The other thing about needs that I talk a bit about has to do with prime time. What is your prime time? By that I mean your prime hours, because whether you're taking meds, whether you're not taking meds, doesn't matter. All of us have prime time. And when prime time is over, it ain't going to happen. And it isn't going to happen effectively because you're out of prime time. It's like coming back into this life from the life that I've been in the last week and a half. What I found is that the things that were challenging, like getting to the market, things that weren't challenging before, I haven't wanted to be in crowded places with lots of people and all of that because that's not my pace right now. And so what I knew prime time hours had to be for me is I had to go first thing this morning, earlier than I normally go. So I was up, I was showered, I was ready, and I was going at 8. The market opens at 8. That's when I went. The reason being my need was 1, to be in prime time, 2, to be in a time when less people, less crowded, get in, get out, get the food that I need, and come back to the space. So I know what hours for me are my prime time, meaning when I can focus. You need to know when you can best focus and best take action. And it doesn't mean that it's even a continuous span of time. It could be that you have prime time in the morning, and then you have some downtime or lag time where you're not really in prime time. And then you get a second wind, and then let's say you're in prime time again. So that's important to know when bells, all kinds of things happening. That's important to know when your prime time is. Because why? You want to schedule the things that are difficult, challenging, really need to get done, that are a priority for you in prime time. You don't want to be trying to do something that is really a top priority and important to you after hours after prime time. Because one of the problems that I find that people encounter is they devalue the things that they say they need to do that are for themselves, whether it's cleaning, whether it's marketing, whatever it is, self-care kinds of things. So they put it outside of prime time hours, and then it doesn't happen. And then they feel like they're a procrastinator, and they just can't do it, and they can't get things done. And then when I look and I say, well, when are you doing it? And they tell me, and I say, so when are your prime time hours? Totally not their prime time hours. So it's a small wonder why it's not happening. You need to value the things that are important and do them during prime time. I don't care if other people don't think it's an important thing and say, well, why are you doing your marketing at 8 a.m. when you could be doing this? It's like, because that's when I know my marketing could happen today. Otherwise, the food won't be in the fridge and I won't be eating healthy again, because I've eaten a lot of very weird kinds of foods in the last week and a half because other people have been feeding me. And I'm grateful for the food, and it's not what I usually eat, and my body feels different. So I'm grateful I roasted a chicken today, and I bought a bunch of salads and things because my body's going, yay, this is what we eat. And it's just how it is. So another thing about prime time, so what I put here in terms of considering your needs, considering prime time, when you actually could get something done because your focus or your ability to follow through is at its height, not at its lowest, which is usually where a lot of the things that we do for ourselves get left to the end. And we have no juice to be able to do them because they're so outside of prime time. So first topic here being planning. To plan, and this is where I'm going to get into this more in the coaching call, is if you want me to talk about planning for a specific goal, I can talk about that. If you want me to talk about planning in terms of your life, and I mean like your life in the bigger picture, like day to day, and then how do all the pieces fit in there and how does that happen, I'll do that too, because they're both important. They're both part of planning. When I think of planning, and I'll use this as just an example of like a goal, because each of you has a goal or multiple goals that you want to achieve doing this work together. So when you're planning, to me, what planning is like planning a trip in the car. You're going to take a road trip and you need to plan. So the first thing is, where are you going? Where are you going if you're going to take a road trip? And if you don't know and you say, well, it doesn't really matter, I just want to get in the car and I just want to drive, which some people like to do, that's okay. Then maybe it's similar with goals. What do you want to achieve? I don't know, I just want to feel good that I've done something. Okay, then it doesn't really matter and you can choose anything. But if there's something specific that you want to feel good about, it's like planning a road trip. Where do you want to go? So if I want to take a road trip and I want to go from here to Sedona, because I want to go back and I want to see the beautiful stuff in Sedona. So I would get a map, and in this case, I'd probably use my phone, and I talk to Suri and say, map me from here to Sedona and give me some options. So now I see how long is it going to take according to the map, where are the different ways I can go, but I still have some choices here in terms of, do I want to get there the fastest Same thing with a goal as a road trip. Do I want to get the fastest, the most expedient? Do I want to see the most scenic route? Meaning in terms of planning for a goal, do I want to have the most growth opportunities and really expand the goal to learn a lot? Or I just want to achieve it and check it off? Because all of these things have to do with how you're going to plan it. And the way that we're going to get to a goal is the same way as using a map. It's like if you have a map, and not a to-do list, but like visually have a map. Harder to get lost when you have a map. You have a visual. It shows you your starting. It shows you your destination. And it shows you various different ways you can go. And you decide, based on your needs, which way are you going to go? How are you going to go? Fastest, most scenic, most growth opportunities, just want to get it over with and get it done. Shortest route, fastest route, most expedient. You have to decide. When you decide, just like with a road trip, you'll decide which route you're going to take. And then there's factors with a road trip that has to do with cost. Cost of the gasoline, the food, are you taking things with you? Same thing on your way to a goal. Cost in this case is time, energy, effort. And those are real costs. And let's say that you're limited in energy because you fatigue easily. Let's say that you're limited in time because you only have a little bit of time each day to put to your goal. That's okay. If you only have 30 minutes a day to put to a goal that's important, and every single day you put those 30 minutes to the goal, do you know how many goals you'd achieve with just 30 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day? If you chunk them and did them faithfully every single day, you would achieve them. But we tend to look at them and think, here's this thing I have to do. And we do the hyper-focus thing where we get in and we don't want to get out. And a lot of times we don't want to get out because we're afraid we won't be able to get back in again. And if we stay in and we stay hyper-focused, we think we'll make it to the end. But often we get overwhelmed and we burn out and we don't make it to the end. And then we don't go back because we don't have a way to track where we left off. And it's like starting all over again. And after doing that enough times, forget it. None of us wants to do that. So I like fairy tales. That's what this brain is. And so I think of Hansel and Gretel and the little breadcrumbs, if I've got the right nursery story. And they left a trail of where they were so they wouldn't get lost. And I tend to draw from all kinds of places in my life. And so to me, it's the equivalent of leaving a trail to be able to get back to where it is that I left off. I don't ever disengage from something I'm doing without some kind of marker or some kind of trail, cue, prompt, something, whether I dictate it, if it's like really complicated and I need to hear words to tell me how to get back into the state of mind and right back into where I left off. But I do not leave the scene of what I'm doing without markers if I need to come back. Because I don't know about you guys, but I know when something's really complicated and it has taken me an enormous amount of time to go deep, deep, deep into it to really see it and understand it at the belly of it. And then I have 15 minutes left to do it. And it took all that time to wrap my brain around it. And now I only have 15 minutes to get it done. And that's really frustrating. And then if I leave and I don't leave a marker, I have to start all over again. It'll take that amount of time again to get all the way back down in there. And then I'll have limited time again. And that's exhausting for everyone who's ever done that I've talked to. It's really hard. So there's a lot of ways to leave markers or breadcrumbs, however you want to associate to that. You can use like dictate on your phone, just a quick little message to yourself of where you are, what you're thinking, just anything at all that you can use as a prompt to get yourself back to the state where you are before you exit. But if you exit and you don't do that, it's like starting over, almost like you never did anything, and it feels terrible on anything. Cleaning, reports, weight, house, job, work, anything. Because we forget where we left off and we look at it and it's like we're looking for the first time again. So having cues in that planning. So the idea being, so again, a map, specifically where you want to go, like taking a trip with the car, how far is the destination, your criteria for getting there, like fast, looking at the cost, just like taking a trip, time, effort, energy, in terms of the plan. So that, again, if you know you fatigue easily, get overwhelmed easily, and you just can't bite off a huge chunk, then you need to do it in small amounts. And the small amounts means underestimate the small amount. Like if you think you could do 30 minutes a day, do 15 or 20, because better to start with a smaller amount and then inch up to a little bit more rather than thinking and assuming, oh, I could do 30 minutes, that's not very much, and do 30, jump in and get overwhelmed. That's senseless. You need to learn so much about yourself as to what's going to let you continually move forward every single day without getting stuck, without getting overwhelmed, without all those things that sabotage your efforts. So that's kind of an overview of planning. I want to talk about scheduling next, because scheduling has to do with, so where are you going to put the things that you're planning? Which a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with this too, in terms of where to put it, when to put it, how much time to use for it. Like there's some magic formula that says, well, this should take this amount of time. I should block out this amount of time. Everybody's different. So when you're going to schedule, again, back to prime time, if it's really, really important and you need to be able to focus when you're going to schedule it is in prime time. And if there's something really important, it has to go in the schedule before all the other stuff, which brings me to working with a backlog of things you need to catch up on, whether that's clutter, whether that's paperwork, whether that's bills, doesn't matter. We all either have it currently or have had it. You know, I wrote out these details of a life example. It's a little story. It's about the idea of moving boxes of stuff from residence to residence to residence and having stuff boxed up for 10 years that I never looked at. But I couldn't just throw all those boxes away, because what if they had important papers in them that I didn't even know where they were? I at least needed to go through them and then decide what I was going to do with it. And I have a whole methodology for sorting through that. But the idea is, let's say you have a backlog of clutter or papers, reports, things that you need to do, phone calls that you need to do, emails that you need to respond to. There's two challenges. One is, in terms of scheduling, you need to schedule your current life. That means now, today's life, not the life of catch-up. So, and in order to be able to know how much time you have available to schedule cleaning up your old life, you have to know how much time is left over from actively living your current life. Because if you don't start somewhere by scheduling and planning your current life and the time and how you're going to allocate it, then me trying to help you schedule and plan all your catch-up stuff is impossible, because you're always going to be catching up, because you're not going to allocate the time that you need for today's life. So let's say that so many people don't put sleep in their calendar, transition time in their calendar. They don't put time to eat. They don't put bathing time. They don't put time to go to the market, to do their laundry. I'm talking everything, because to me, putting together a schedule is like putting together a budget. And I got really, really good with financial things, and a spreadsheet that I created years ago, that everything is there. All the things that people forget to put in their budget. The haircut, oh, that only happens every now and then, but then there's no money to get their haircut. And then the things that they have to renew once a year, but the money isn't there for it, and they have to borrow it from something else because it only happens once a year. And all these different things that are all part of the budget, all part of the budget of time. A time budget is everything that we do. You know, we all go to the bathroom. We all hopefully bathe and brush our teeth and do whatever it is that we do. This is all time. This is all part of the budget. You don't have to do it to the minute, to the second. You don't have to be OCD like I was when I was playing around with this when I was first doing it, because I was obsessed. And every minute, because when I worked in law, you had to account for every minute because it had to be billed for the accounts for the clients. So I played with it that way in the beginning when I was playing with a time budget. But that made me nuts because I couldn't account for every minute. But I didn't want to lose huge blocks of time either. So I found a way to track and start seeing, how long do things take me? Because if I'm going to schedule, I need to know. Not what it takes other people, not what I think it should take, but how much time does it really take? Put on a timer. How long does it take you to clear the table after you eat or prepare a meal? Clean up your kitchen, put away the dishes, whatever it is that you do. People think it's an enormous amount of time, so they don't do it. And then it builds up, and then it really is an enormous amount of time. Instead of, there were some people in my meetup group that timed themselves. It was 7 minutes. It was 7 minutes to like clear everything up, put it in the dishwasher, and be done. But it didn't feel like in their body, in their mind, that it was going to be 7 minutes. It looked huge, distorted. And so they didn't want to do it. Instead of time yourself and see. Because you can make a game out of it. Carry around a little timer, put on the timer, see how long something takes, total it up at the end of the day, see what you've got, and see how much time it really takes to do the things. If you thought, oh, well, it only takes me 30 minutes to get ready in the morning and it takes 2 hours, and you're an hour and a half behind all the time, when you do this and you time yourself and you see it takes 2 hours to get ready in the morning, not 30 minutes, then you won't be surprised. And you'll reallocate the time according to what it takes you. Or you'll reevaluate if everything you were doing in those 2 hours is really important. And if it is, then it's 2 hours. And too bad for the rest of the world that takes 30 minutes, because that's not you. We have to be real with what it takes. Certain things take longer. It's just how it is. So deciding where you're going to put stuff for catch up in terms of scheduling comes after you schedule current life, because you have no way to know where you can put and how much time you have available to put for catch up until you know what it takes to stay current in your life, in the now. Like, how many hours do you work? How long does it take to get to work? How long does it take in terms of getting ready and all these different things that we do, and eating and cleanup, and if you make your bed, whatever you do, how long does all that take? And so out of 24 hours, when you add in sleep, let's say what you learn by staying current in your life, you have a total of 1 hour, 2 max excess. That's it. Disposable time. And you thought you had a ton of time, and you don't. You have maybe 1 hour maybe 2. And that's not even allowing yourself the luxury of reading a book or a TV show. That's everything that you needed to do that was really important, and you've got an hour or 2 left. So realistically, do you, if it was 2 hours, want to allocate one of those hours for personal downtime and read or watch a TV show because it's important to decompress? And do you want to allocate one of those hours for catch up? Because if that's all you've got, then realistically, it's going to take whatever it's going to take to catch up. But if you have 1 hour a day and you faithfully do 1 hour a day of catch up, you will catch up. That's basically what I ended up doing with the 10 years of boxes of papers and things. It took an enormous time, and I figured, what the heck? It's been sitting in boxes for 10 years. You know, how important or critical could be anything in the boxes? I know I needed to save certain things, but it's not like I had to dig quickly through these boxes because they hadn't been opened in years. So I just booked like an hour, whatever it was, took a box, went through it. A lot of stuff went, certain stuff, wow, I didn't know I still had that. That's great. You know, and set it aside for how it was going to get filed and how it'd be allocated. Because I didn't know, and I didn't want to stop. I was in a sorting mode. What was trash, what was old, which was wrappers, whatever was in there, to go through on a first pass. Then I did a more organized filing and sorting and keeping and all of that. Point being, you need to know how many hours of the day to maintain being current in now, and what do you have left over to play catch up? Because if you spend current time on catch up, now something currently in your life is behind and is being added to the pile of catch up. There's no getting out of this. We think we were really slick because, I'm going to get into this and spend 2 hours doing cleanup and sorting and throwing away and all of that. And it's like, do you have 2 hours that day? Well, no, but I did 2 hours and I feel really good. Great. So you only had an hour, but you took 2. So what got put to the end of the train? And what have you now added to the pile? Because something was there. You bounced it because you were really into doing what you were doing. This is where saying no to ourselves and staying with the plan really becomes important. This is that part that's the following through and not changing the plan, not re-choosing, not redeciding, but staying with the plan. Because if you're going to put thought into a plan, like putting pieces of a puzzle together and saying, well, this works pretty well. I have balance. I have time for me. I have time for catch up. I have time to stay current in my life. I have time to feed myself. I have time to do all the things that I need to do. And then you decide to throw out the plan that you spent time making because on a whim, you were in the mood to do something else. It felt like this would be a good time to just dig in and do 4 hours of whatever the thing is on the behind stuff. And you didn't have 4 hours. But you let yourself choose again. Now there's a new problem to add to what you had. It always works like that. The thing that we're thinking is the solution and we got ahead really put us behind. Because when we look at what we didn't do, now we're in trouble. And the way that we prevent that is we have to say no. I look at my calendar at least 3 times a day. I look at it tonight for tomorrow to see if there's anything I might need to go to the store for to be ready for tomorrow. I look at it tomorrow morning to see what's happening in the first half of the day. I look at it at lunchtime to look at what's happening in the second half of the day. And then I look at it again tomorrow night to see if I stayed with the plan and what do I need to possibly get for the next day that I can pick up at night. So I'm not rushing around in the morning and I don't have what I need for the day. And now I've just lost an hour because I wasn't prepared. Make sense? So What about following through? Because that is really difficult for so many people. It's like a lot of people I work with can make the plan, can actually get the schedule. They spend time and they do this. Oh, by the way, part of what you have to plan for is time to plan. That has to be scheduled. It doesn't just come from the sky miraculously and show up. We have to put it in the schedule that I'm going to take an hour to plan once a week, whatever is necessary for what you're working on. So how do we follow through? We got a plan. We made a schedule. We even got it into a calendar. And there it is. It's like a personal assistant, all mapped out, nice and neat. Everything's got lots of room. We have buffers. We have transition time. It's beautiful. It's a work of art. And then we get up in the morning and we don't do anything that's on there, or very little. We make it up as we go and we do what it is that we want to do and what we feel like doing, and we don't follow through on this beautiful work of art that we invested all this time, effort, and energy to create, so that we wouldn't just fly by the seat of our pants. So, reasons that people don't follow through: one is they don't have cues. They don't have reminders or prompts because they're not used to following a schedule. And so they don't have times like I'm talking about, in the evening, in the morning, at lunchtime, in the evening. To me, those are cues or prompt times that I've trained myself to look at my schedule, because I don't have it memorized. I get involved in something and it's like, do you think that I remember what I'm supposed to be doing tomorrow at noon? No. I want my head to be free, not like a walking calendar where I'm supposed to remember everything that I'm supposed to do. I want to put it in a calendar or digital or something to be my external hard drive for my memory and my brain. And then I want my brain free to think. I want something that's going to hold all that information, which means I have to look. And out of sight, out of mind, if you don't have it someplace that cues you, prompts you, triggers you to look, or you don't set alarms to remind you to look and make that a habit, then you're not going to look. Like I have on my wall, I have the think board, which I put in our forum about, it's like very thin material and it adheres to like any flat surface. And they make calendars that are like 30-inch calendars, and they're whiteboards is basically what they are. So every month I can just do this big, huge whiteboard, erase it after I've taken a picture of it, and then do the next one. But when I'm sitting here, out of the corner of my eye, I can see that thing all the time. So all I got to do is just look over there and see the calendar, see what's on it. I don't put all the details on that one, but the main things for prompts of what's going on in any given day. The details I keep with my online calendar. But that reminds me, calendar. Even if I didn't put anything on it, calendar. It's like a big image of a calendar that reminds me, look at your calendar. You know, and I even played with it by not putting anything on it and then said, gee, I wonder what's on my calendar, because here's calendar, but there's nothing there. I know I have things on the calendar, which made me curious to go look at my calendar. So whatever's going to work to get you into the habit of looking. Don't spend the time to put all that great information in and then don't look at it, which is what so many people do. It's nice, it's neat, it's in a book, it's folded, it's put away someplace special where it won't get lost, and it's never looked at. And it's never interacted with, which is really a shame. So cues and prompts to use it. The question about follow through is, so why do people not? Reasons I put are things like resistance. Some people do not like to follow a schedule, and they resist. They feel like they're a little kid and they're being told what to do and they don't like it. Now, mind you, you're the one who's telling you, but if you grew up with the idea or the belief that no one gets to tell me what to do, if you were bossed around like growing up and you got sick and tired of it and you told yourself in your head, no one's ever going to get to tell me what to do. I'm sick and tired of being bossed around. No one includes you. It's all inclusive. No one ever. That means you too. So then you try to tell yourself, look at this beautiful schedule I just created. Come on, let's do this. No, because no one gets to tell you, including you. So if that's the case, there's a belief that has to be changed there that says no one gets to tell you except you and anyone who you give the right to suggest or tell you or ask to tell you. But other than that, nobody else. But that has to be cleaned up because otherwise that'll get in the way and you won't be able to tell yourself to do stuff because you won't do it. And you won't listen to other people who you even ask to tell you because you have this belief that nobody gets to tell you, including them, even though you ask them. Because that belief trumps what you're trying to do in the now. Unforeseen tasks or unforeseen events. Everybody has emergency stuff come up. Some of us have more, some of us have less, but everybody has stuff. And how do we handle when we've planned, we've scheduled, and something comes up? What do we do with that? Well, if you have yourself booked completely with no space at all, that's a problem because you have no place to slot anything else in. So it's like saying an emergency happens today and you couldn't do two things that you had on your schedule to do because that emergency happened. So you in your mind say, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. But you did not go to your calendar to see if you had that amount of time tomorrow to get to it because it was an assumption. And you just figured there's space tomorrow, but you didn't look. So if you look and you see, wow, this is an emergency situation that I need to handle, and I just said, I'll handle these things tomorrow, but I don't have any time tomorrow to handle them. So where am I going to put this stuff? If I just drop the ball, it falls through the cracks and it becomes part of the stuff that I have to still catch up on again. Or I develop the habit of, I have to know where I'm going to put it. I have to know where I'm going to put it because emergencies happen. But I need to know where am I going to put those two things? Where is their room? And the only way I can know that is if I've done a schedule and I've planned at least for the week. I plan a month at a time. I plan longer than that, but detail-wise, I plan a month at a time. Some things that are further out than a month, they're on my calendar, like a conference or something like that is noted, but not all the details about what I'm doing every single day. But for a month, I have all those details because I need to be able to look in an emergency situation and know what I'm going to do. And maybe one emergency happens after another, and there is no room. And so it's those things still have to happen, like what happened with our calls. So I took time, and I came back. I looked at the calls, the workshops, where I'm going to put them. I'd already put out, does this work for you for Sunday for you guys? There was a yes from the majority of people. And so I scheduled the one that was supposed to be this past Wednesday because I wasn't ready to come back yet for tonight. And the coaching call that was supposed to happen last Friday, I scheduled for this coming Friday because there's typically just a coaching call once a week, not twice a week. But I put a second one so that we're current and there's plenty of time to talk about this topic. That became a top priority because the priority is I had to move these 2 or 3 things So before anything else gets scheduled, I have to get them on my calendar. That's what I have to do. I can't just let it ride until whenever comes around and then we just start there. No, because these are things we're supposed to be doing. Life goes on for all of us. These things are important, and it's important that I be here. And part of back to needs, I knew what my needs were. My needs weren't 3 days. I knew that 3 days was not going to be the amount of time that I needed. I knew I needed the week. But I knew I would be ready to be back and doing stuff tonight. And I am. And I am thrilled that I get to do this. Not that I wasn't thrilled that I had the time to do and gave to myself for the things that were important in that other aspect of my life. This is also important and really meaningful to me. And I've missed doing this. And I also know that my needs for the past week were different, and I honored that. And I also honor the fact that my needs now are to do something else. So, resistance, unforeseen emergencies. So, if you can't schedule it for the next day, and maybe you can't schedule it for the week, like was my situation, when is the first available time that you're going to schedule it? Because it doesn't just drop off the calendar. It still needs to happen, because if you let it go too long, it's like starting again. And there's more problems the longer that it goes on. So it needs to be fit in someplace. And that's what I did. That's what you need to do if there's emergencies. Now, if there's emergencies happening every single day, that's another issue. Because that's telling me that there's something missing in terms of having the foresight and the planning, where everything is kind of on the fly. And so things are hitting you every single day. There's a crisis. I've lived that life, and it's exhausting because everything I had planned goes out the window, and I have to deal with emergencies. And those emergencies seem to suck up the whole day, and everything that was supposed to happen that day doesn't happen, and now I'm a day behind. And then the next day there's more emergencies, and it's just like this never-ending cycle. So when I've been in that situation, what I needed to do was kind of pull the plug and give, myself an hour or two, whatever I felt that I was going to need, and look at my life and see why are emergencies continually happening every day, because they were for a while. And it might be because there were some really important things that I hadn't put some structure or something into my life. And so those things just kept happening over and over again, whether it be with a loved one, whether it be with a work situation. If I didn't have good boundaries, or I didn't have a backup person or a backup system or something in place so that every single time something happened, it didn't throw me and get me derailed. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's important to assess if that's the situation and you keep getting derailed, to assess why are you getting derailed over and over and over again, every day, let's say. Because that to me then becomes a priority to solve. Because if that doesn't get solved and it's not made a priority and you continually get derailed by emergencies every day, then planning and structuring and scheduling and getting ahead and getting caught up won't happen. Because you can make the best plan in the world and you can be as committed as anything and you can vow and pledge that you're going to stick to this, and then you get hit with something because there's a leak in the system somehow that needs to be addressed. So to me, that would be a priority. Above and beyond trying to plan all this other stuff would be fix the leak, fix whatever's derailing so that you have a solid system and don't get derailed every day. Because in that 5-day or 5-step process, grace that I talk about, there's times that we think we know what the goal is and we set the goal, but it isn't the goal. Because there's a goal that has to happen, that we have to set and we have to achieve before the goal that we just set or we think is the goal. And this would be a perfect example. Like, I may want my life to run smoothly, and I may want to get caught up on stuff, and I may want to allocate that hour every single day to get caught up. But if my life is every single day I get hit with an emergency and get derailed, then that's really my goal, and my priority is to solve that first. And then I'll be able to do the scheduling and the planning and know that I can start shaping things to be able to follow through and stay consistent without getting derailed, because I address the issue of derailed. So other things that I put issues in terms of connected with this is the difference between saying something as a priority and making something a priority. I know I have said things are a priority, but they weren't. If you looked at my life, there would be no evidence that it was a priority. You know, however many years ago, I made my relationship with my mother a priority. And I wiped off everything that was on my calendar from Friday midday through Sunday noon. And I knew that I had made my relationship with her a priority because nothing was ever booked on there except her and me in pink from Friday midday until she left on noon. And other things that I have made a priority, I see that same evidence. If it's a priority, I should be able to see the evidence that it is a priority. It's like saying relationships is a priority and work is a priority. And I know that I need to do both. And I look at my life and I see that my relationships are getting a ton of my time and my work isn't. So even though I say work is a priority, the evidence says something different. The evidence says that my relationships, now this isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. This isn't a criticism. This is just getting it straight in your own head that you're congruent. That if you say your priority is work, then you can see evidence. If you say your priority is relationship or family or friends, that you're congruent and you see evidence of what you say is a priority. If you don't see it, it isn't. Because priorities are action. And you have to be able to see the evidence of what your words are saying. So the other thing that I put in here is I talked a little bit about weaving the backlog and the fact that we only have now. We only have today. And one of the things, and this isn't a new concept for me, is this idea of living life ready. And I've given some thought to it recently in terms of what does that mean to me. Living life ready to me means that if an opportunity comes up and it's something I want to do, that I have said that I want to do, and I'm working towards that, I need to be ready. Because if the opportunity comes and I'm not ready, I don't get that opportunity. That opportunity will pass me by. And there's 1,000,001 reasons why we, ADD and not, postpone, procrastinate, and don't do things. The time passes, and then the time is gone, and that window of opportunity is gone. And we can never get that window back. We can get a different window sometimes, but we can't get the same window. Like for women who want to bear children, there is a window. You have that window. If you say it's a priority and it's really important, there better be some evidence that you're doing something about that, or the window closes and it wasn't a priority. For me, I never said that was a priority in my life. That was, maybe that would be something that I would enjoy. I'm not sure in terms of having my own children, but it was never a priority, and that window closed. And I'm fine with that because it was never a priority, so I don't have regret. But if it had been a priority and I hadn't done something about it, either to make sure that I bore a child or adopted a child, fostered a child, something, if that was an important experience for me, and I said it was a priority, then I better have evidence that it was. Otherwise, I'm going to have regret if I don't. And that would make me feel really bad. So I know that I covered a lot of different things in terms of these three things, and there is so much more in terms of breaking it out into all the moving parts of each of these. But I wanted to give you an overview of the three main areas of the topic for the workshop, to give you some things to think about, to give you some things to think about questions for your own specific situation and your own specific goals. It's like looking at your own life and saying, okay, so let's say that you are totally fine and you're totally down with the planning part. And that's great. But the scheduling, you heard me, but it still doesn't make any sense, and you don't know how to do scheduling in terms of your specific situation. Or you don't know how to get yourself to follow through because you don't listen to you. And you tell you to do it, and then you go, meh, and you don't do it, like a little kid. And so how do you get yourself to do it? Let's say you're solid on the first two things, but you can't get yourself to follow through, no matter what you do. Consequences, punishments, all kinds of stuff, rewards, incentives, and you still ain't doing it. So I need to know, I want to know what that is, because that's for coaching calls where we can spotlight those things and go deep with those things. If I'm giving you these chunks so that it helps you identify, well, it's not as bad as I thought because I can do this and I can do this and I can take it this far, but then I hit this wall because I don't listen to me and I don't follow through. It doesn't matter what I do. Crack the whip, punish, incentive, tell myself I'm going to get the fanciest trip if I do that. I mean, whatever it is that I try to incentivize myself, and it still doesn't work. No bribes, nothing. And it's like, that's definitely tasking on a coaching call, because it helps you uncover where you're solid by doing what we're doing tonight and where the real issue is. Instead of thinking, I don't know how to schedule and I don't know how to plan and I don't know how to follow through, because maybe that's not true. Maybe it's only one, maybe it's two, maybe it's all three. But you won't know if I don't give you some information about what happens in these different areas.
I trust you can hear yourself in my examples about planning, scheduling, and following through. Don't let it stop there. Commit to yourself to take action and use some of what I've shared with you in this episode to improve the quality of your life. You can do it. A favorite quote of mine. T.S. Eliot said, "Every moment is a fresh beginning." A question I have for you at this point in our journey together is, do you believe T.S. Eliot? And do you see every moment for what it truly is? I hope you do. Whether you're learning from my podcast episodes or live videos, or you're working with me directly, you're in my world, and I'm here to serve your needs. So be sure to reach out and get your needs met. It's up to you to take action here so that things can change for you. In case this is your first listen to my show, my website is being redesigned and is going to be providing you with a more streamlined experience, as well as many resources that you may not have known that I share with my community for free. So be sure to make your way over to my site at drbarbaracohen.com and check out the resources over these next few weeks in case there's something there that can serve a need you have. New things keep showing up regularly. My next live webinar is going to be the first week in January 2020, with multiple dates and times for you to show up and learn and play with me on essential skill building. I'll be announcing the actual dates and times very soon. In the meantime, if you want to make sure to get notified when the dates and times are released, be sure to hop on my January webinar waitlist and be the first to be notified when the actual date is released. If you've been a listener for some time, I trust you know by now that I get you and have lived through most of the same things that you all have. The only difference might be that I've learned what I was missing and gotten to the other side, and I'd love to help you all do the same. I remember how scattered and disorganized and stressed I felt all the time. I appreciate you all showing up today and in the future. I'm making my way back to producing regular episodes, and it feels really good. Be sure to subscribe so that the newest episode will automatically be in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends and family, as well as rate the show. If you'd like to do a little bit more, you could write a thoughtful review on iTunes so I know that I'm meeting your needs. I'd love to know if today's episode was valuable for you and how. I love hearing from you, so feel free to email me. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the resources I referred to today. I hope to see you in the Facebook group, Living Beyond ADHD, as well as in the webinar this January. That is, if it's of interest to you. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're eager to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com to see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with community support in a group environment or prefer one-to-one coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information you need to get started at drbarbaracohen.com.